Sorry, I started it and then I immediately had to yawn. Worst timing ever. So, hello, I'm back. Um, I decided to go ahead and do another one because gotta film them anyway, and if Dad watches them and is like, that's terrible, which, in all honesty, I mean, it could happen. Anything's possible. But if that happens, then, we can just refilm them. Not that big of a deal. We've got time to burn. So, I'm back, and this time we're going to be looking at a prayer, our first prayer in Judges. It is from Judges chapter 1, verse 1, and it reads, Sometime after Joshua had died, the Israelis asked the Lord, Who is to lead us against the Canaanites in our opening attack against them? And then the answer is in verse 2. The Lord replied, The tribe of Judah is to lead you. Look, I've given the land into their control. Sorry if it was loud over there. Truck just came through and it's a gravel road, so hope it turned out okay sound-wise. So, in the first verse, we see that Joshua has died. So, first Moses passed things down to Joshua, and then Joshua dies after leading the people into the promised land. And Joshua doesn't do what Moses did. I'm having a hard time remembering, and so Dad and I may do some commentary on the two that I did on my own, just in case I say anything that's not correct. But if I remember correctly, I think Joshua's biggest problem, especially once he became leader, was just that he didn't bring up another leader after him. And so you see that in this verse here. Once he dies, the people are like, God, what do we do? Who's gonna lead us? Who takes care of us? Who marches into battle at the front of the army? Who does this for us? We don't know. Our leader just died. And thankfully, they do still have God. One of the things that I think Joshua and Moses both should have done a bit more, and really all of us should do, is we need to point things back to God more, because the people here are like, who's going to lead us? Our leader just died. Guys, your leader's God. Come on, I know you've got a human going in front of you, but your leader hasn't just died. He's still here. You're talking to him right now in the first verse of this book. And I feel like we often do that, where it's like, oh no, this very important person has died or has left and our relationship isn't the same, and what am I going to do? I can't survive without that person. No, 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 no. The person, the one you can't survive without needs to be God. If there's somebody else, then maybe you're depending on them too much. I don't know backstory or anything with what might be going on there, but God first. And Moses and Joshua, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't so much their fault as just Israelites were humans, and we have a really hard time when we see a physical leader. We're like, oh, that's the leader. But then we don't recognize, oh, no, 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 God's the leader. And this physical person, they, even though they may be important, they don't matter as much as God does. So, sorry. So, this is a very simple prayer. They just come to God and they say, hey, we need somebody to lead us. Of course, kind of the irony there with me talking about how they're a little bit lost because they don't have a leader. The person they go to for leadership is still God. So their heart's in the right place. They're still doing pretty well, which is surprising if you know much about the book of Judges, because most of the book of Judges is just the Israelites totally messing up and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So it's nice to see that at the beginning, at least, they've got something that's going well for them. That once Joshua dies, their first instinct is, hey, we need to talk to God about this. So maybe I was a bit too harsh on them earlier, considering that the first act that we know of after their physical leader dies is we need to talk to God. They're doing fairly well, actually. So, who's going to lead us against the Canaanites in our opening attack against them? And again, they've got things much better than the previous generation, because if you'll remember, when they were coming up to the promised land before, they were like, ha ha ha, us attack them? Yeah, that's happening. Yeah. Okay, now can we go back to Egypt, please? And that was basically that. And then God was like, "Yep, nope, no, you're gonna wander around in the wilderness till you all die." And then they were like, "Okay, yeah, we'll go kill people now." And God's like, "Nope, no, you're nah, that's not happening at all. Sorry, it's not gonna go well for you." But they ignored him and wound up dying. So really, I wonder if that sped up the timeline anyway, because they were supposed to go off in the wilderness and die. And so if they went off into the battle and died, I don't know, the next generation would have still had to have grown up. And appears to be starting off fairly well because, again, first thing they do, God, who's going to lead us? And surprisingly, God actually answers them, which, in my mind and from what I can tell from Scripture, means that they are doing things fairly well because God in the Old Testament only really talked to a fairly specific few people. So if they have God still openly communicating with them, they must be doing something right. And so God replies, "The tribe of Judah is to lead you. Look, I've given the land into their control." So they say, "God, we need a leader." God's like, "The tribe of Judah's got this. They'll go through and help y'all out." And then if you continue on, as far as I read, things appear to be going pretty well. The army of Judah does actually lead. They follow through with God's plan, so they are sticking with what's supposed to happen pretty well. The army of Judah just goes through with which tribe? Simeon. Simeon and Judah just go through and wipe out a big area, and they appeared to be following God's plan. So answered prayer, and then once they got the answer to that prayer, they followed through with it. And that's something that we can really learn a lot from in our prayer lives is when you pray and you're asking God for something, God's always going to answer. Of course, he's not going to answer quite as obviously as he does here, where he just replies with actual words and says, "The tribe of Judah is to lead you. Look, I've given the land into their control." The chances of that happening nowadays are basically none. But God does still answer. And you've probably heard the good old, when God answers a prayer, he gives a yes, a wait, or a no. Once he answers and gives you one of those three things, stick with it. If God says yes and then things get difficult, God still said yes, and you're just going to have to overcome. You're just going to have to overcome some things on the way. If God says wait, don't get all fired up and ready to go and be like, all right, we're doing this anyway. No, just wait for it. It'll happen whenever it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, just based on God's plan. And if God says no, back out and figure out something else to do, because if you go down that path, things aren't going to go well for you. And the Israelites, at least in this first chapter of Judges, appear to have that down pretty well. Because once God says, yes, I'm giving you a leader, here's your leader, then they stick with that leader and they go off into battle and they win. And while we do give the Israelites, and I earlier in this video gave the Israelites a hard time for stuff that they do. They're doing well here. And of course, later on in the book of Judges, they completely and utterly fail at doing well, but currently they have things on the right track. And while they have things on the right track, we can use that and we can learn from that. So when you pray and you get an answer from it, stick with that answer. Let me see what else was in here. I believe that is basically everything I had. And of course, like I said, if Dad watches these, he may be like, oh, there's way too much that I want to add to this, so we'll just refilm it. Or he may watch this and we may just do some extra comments a little bit later on. I don't know. He's not here. I can't ask him. We'll see when he gets back. But for now, that is this video. I hope it was somewhat helpful to you. A semi introduction to Judges, along with talking about this prayer and a little bit of the first chapter. Yeah, hope your day goes well. Or if you're watching this at night, hope your day has gone well and hope your next day will go well. Time's odd. It really is. So, hope you will be back tomorrow for another video, and hope to see you then. Bye.